You will go into a state of being of transference. So you've got to let the person know that you're a bit possessed with them. You won't seem like it. I don't seem like law disappears when there's a reading on. Everybody thinks that it's me doing the talking, but it's actually them. So like this week I had a particular person and somebody who turned up in their cards. I repeated over and over again throughout the reading, they're yummy. Now I think that the person sitting opposite me thought that that was my opinion, but it's their opinion of the person that is their lover.
I've got a question about people coming in that are like in really disturbed states. Somebody who's really struggling with their mental health, and
Don't do them. Don't do them. Don't ever do anybody who's really struggling with mental health issues. You
how
can
do you
really,
know before like I was
have you got a website?
not yet, no.
Just a small one will do.
Yep.
How can you tell? That's your job before you even start. It quite often, because if they're going to email you or they're going to phone you, if they're just going to turn up, for example, at my tent or no, I won't. I just won't do the person who just turns up. If you're doing that through necessity, Nishka, then you need to at least have a preamble out the front of your workspace that says, I will not work with you if you are going through the experience of any kind of trauma that is just, that tips them over the edge. If a person turns up, you're going to pick them up straight away. A person turns up on their second day on ice, you're going to know. Their whole body will zing at that. And you've actually also got to be able to pick that up. Okay, I want to give you an example. Can I give you an example?
Please.
There was a person in the Northern Rivers that I read for years. I knew them when they were a he. This is the early days of trans. I don't know whether it was their hormones or what. Got to the stage where they were saying to me, now that I'm a woman, I can actually, my uterus, I'm going to start growing the uterus and then I'm going to be able to have babies. And in the meantime, I'm going to be the masseuse, head masseuse for the whole of the team of the Broncos in Queensland. And I want you to read my cards. And I said, I'm never going to do it again. And they said, I'll take out a hit on you. And no shit, there was a life-threatening situation. That person became really dangerous, and I got really freaked out because I'd heard from other people that they had sent bruisers around to beat people up. Your first reading with that person may be okay. Within the first 5 minutes, you're going to pick up if there is mental illness. You're going to have a Seven of Cups, a Moon card, perhaps a Tower, perhaps a Devil, all of those mixed up together. You've got to know that that person is going through that. And then what are you going to do? How are you going to, you're just going to ask them to leave? I would. And I would do it with as much care and gentleness as possible. And you need to say to them, please come back to me when you've got through this, because I can't help you when you're going through these crises. You need professional help from them, because the last thing you want to do is to end up being in a situation where their family turns up and said, you're dealing with a fucking mad person and you've advised them this and this, and they'll put the blame on you. Don't think for a moment they won't, because they will. That's what you've got to work out. You with me, Nishka?
Yeah. Yeah. I had an experience this week with somebody that, that I was very concerned that they were perhaps going to kill themselves.
Yep.
After our reading.
Okay.
And was throwing a lot. And there was the Tower, the Devil, and the Moon card. There wasn't the Seven of Cups, which is something I expected.
Don't expect it.
Oh, well, okay. No
You've got
expectations.
enough going on there. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot. And, they'd had a death in their experience recently, and there was just a lot there. I mean, but I was pretty freaked out afterwards.
This is difficult because did the person turn up with an Ace of Swords death card?
Ace of Swords, death card. No, no.
They turn up with a Ten of Swords death card?
Yes, but there had been a death. It was recently, they're one of their partners.
The Ace of Swords death card didn't show up dead center to the, excuse the pun.
Oh,
They're vulnerable. You've got to say to them, it's not my responsibility to be your mother. You just lay it out real clear. And then it's their choice. And say, because I'm not necessarily going to agree with you or side with you on anything, it's your choice to stay or go. This is why I never do a person on the same day as they want to come in, because you've got to actually prep yourself. It's really tricky. So are you working from home, or are you working from your own studio, or are you working from a market? What's the deal?
Yeah, I work from a market and I work from my own studio. I
Okay,
do short readings at the market
you're
and
working
like,
from a market. If I can suggest that you're working from a market to get yourself a reputation, and don't do it after that. As soon as you've got clients that can come to your space, that's when you can lay down your parameters. You actually can't do that in a public space like a market. Seriously, the mercy of the people that are running the market on one level, and also random scenarios. The other thing that I'm very aware of is, and somebody who is in this group here has been working through a, what do they call it? A psychic fair all week last week. The attitude of the owners or the managers of these places, because they almost tell you what you should and shouldn't be saying, tell you what you should and shouldn't be doing. I do recall being in Byronshire in the early days, and I thought it would be nice to not have to work from home. So I went down to the medicine wheel and sort of said, okay, I can read some cards from here. And that's going to bring in a few punters, because a lot of people were coming to my home. And they said, yes, but you've got to be able to never tell them bad news. And in a public space, you are really vulnerable like that, Nishka. Just to let you know. You don't know who's going to sit opposite you.
yeah, no, it's been real weird. It's been very interesting.
And
But it also gets a lot of business, then the next week there's like people calling me up and I heard from so and I'm coming, can I come next week? So it's working, like there is this drumming up happening. So it feels, but it rings me out too,
well, it
13,
brings you out. What
13,
you do
14
now is you've
people.
got to establish a pattern that where you pace yourself. For example, um, back in my 30s, I could read 4 people in a day. But that's as many as I could do without suffering. And
Yeah.
in a market, I know they're passing through it every 10 minutes, and you might do sort of like 30 or 40 people in a day. That's going to ring you the fuck out. And the more you get a reputation, when they're coming to your house, please pace yourselves. And you also need to discuss this with your family and the people that you're connected to, because that you got strangers coming through your space. Everybody has to be in agreement, and it sets up a strange paradigm, because your kids then need to know not to be around at certain times. Any partners need to know that this is what you do, this is your work, this is the job, this is your workspace, and nobody should be going in there and nobody should be interfering. And that's just a prerequisite of you being a working human being. Yeah, you with
Yeah.
me?
Yeah. Here you
Yeah,
might, yeah, the studio's away from the house, so it's kind of good.
it's really important. And then never let them come to your home if possible, because that way you could take your work away from home. If it's going to be in your home, it's always been in my home. I've always done it from home. And that's been super stressful when my children were little. But that was because of the dysfunctional behavior of a past partner. But it was super stressful. Because that closed door said to those kids, you shouldn't go in there because mummy's having her friendships. And that raised up a lot of issues that I needed to deal with my offspring when it came time for them to be 8 or 9 and realize what had been going on behind my back. So everything's not always straightforward. Yeah, and you also, with a public space, you are subject to the whims of people that are Christians, people that have got a bias, people who have think it's a joke. That's the other thing. You're in that position where they'll go, oh, this is a bit of fun, let's go get our fortune read. But if you're in a situation where you're serious, yes, they're going to come to you. But first of all, you've got to put up with that. And sometimes it's necessary, but you've sometimes got to put up with that belittlement of your work. And pre-existing archaeological, really, archaeological cosmology and ideology around this kind of work. It's just very old-fashioned and biased by Abrahamic law, that people will treat this like it's a bit of fun and fluff. And of course you're going to shock them. I give people an option. I go, this is looking really, really difficult to read. You've got 2 options before we start: stay or go. At any market situation, I would always give them that option. 99% of the time they want to stay and hear it out, and you've just got to let them know you're the messenger. That's also important, that tarot's doing that. They're the ones who are telling you the information to give back to them. That's a big priority always, that you set up amongst your clients, or to tell your clients that this is not you being the queen of this or the queen of that, or whatever your gender happens to be, doesn't make any difference. If the whole point is to be in a situation where you let them know that you are them, and it doesn't seem like you're possessed, but you bloody well are, which is why you're going to feel sick at the end of it if you're not careful. Have we talked about the sicknesses people can go through? We did, didn't we?
There was a bit of, can you hear me? There was a bit of discussion on the group page about that, and you said that you used to get stomach issues.
Oh, extremes. I mean, I would look 7 months, 8 months pregnant at the end of a day of doing 4 or 5 people. And then it took me until the next morning for that to go down.
Why is that? Do you know why?
You're dealing with the world. You're taking inside of it's because it is, no, there's no logical explanation. But everybody has some kind of physical reaction to this work, always. Even if you just feel fucking odd before you start and odd before you finish. And I usually get odd before I start because I get in a zone. It'll be a good hour I'm in that zone. And to go straight into a reading without that zone, I would just be, and again, there's no describing how each of us does that, but you do have to get into that zone so that people who've got things they want to chat about or the phone's going to ring, it's switch it off.